DNA from two mummies has revealed a lost branch of humanity, one that existed in isolation from the outside world for ages.
Deep beneath the sands of what was once a lush Sahara, ancient mummies have whispered a secret through their DNA. Scientists were not ready for what they found: a mysterious human lineage unlike any other. Lost for thousands of years, this discovery may be the key to unlocking a chapter. Join us as we uncover the story we never knew existed: the lost world beneath the sand. The Sahara Desert is currently a harsh environment with scorching sun, blowing sand, and limited water availability, making it hard for life to thrive. However, thousands of years ago, the Sahara was a lush, green land teeming with wildlife and vibrant activity, resembling more of a grassy paradise than a barren desert. Between approximately 14,000 and 5,000 years ago, a remarkable event took place. The Sahara Desert, which is currently the largest hot desert on Earth, turned into a green and fertile land. This era is referred to as the African Humid Period. The cause of this significant transformation can be attributed to the Earth's movements in space. Slight variations in the planet's orbit, known as the Milankovitch cycles, altered the distribution of sunlight across the globe. Despite being minor, these changes had a major impact by intensifying the African monsoon and bringing heavy rainfall to the northern region. The outcome was extraordinary. Rain that used to avoid the Sahara now soaked it completely. The ground absorbed the water, rivers started flowing, lakes expanded and became deeper. Lush green plants now covered the previously barren soil. Trees grew tall, thick layers of grass covered the rolling hills. The quiet dryness of the desert was replaced by the sounds of buzzing, humming, and animals crying out. Elephants, giraffes, crocodiles, hippos, and antelope all roamed through this lush paradise. Animals that are now typically found in the far southern regions of Africa once freely roamed the Sahara. However, it wasn't just animals that inhabited the area. There were also people living in this verdant Sahara. Human civilization thrived in this previously undiscovered world. The early inhabitants of this region hunted for wild animals, fished in the expansive lakes and fast-flowing rivers, and harvested fruits and plants. Over time, they began domesticating animals such as goats and cattle. The land provided them with everything they mandated: food, water, and shelter. It was a suitable place for human habitation. These individuals not only managed to stay alive, but they also created actual livelihoods. They left evidence of their identities and lifestyles. They etched images of their surroundings on rocks throughout the desert. These pieces of art depict groups of animals, individuals hunting, women collecting items, and boats navigating rivers. These were not just random drawings, but detailed glimpses into the routine of a prosperous society. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and various other items from the past have been discovered. These artifacts tell tales from a distant era. They indicate that the individuals living in the Green Sahara were talented. They crafted tools, produced containers, and crafted items with precision. They had a deep understanding of the environment and collaborated with nature rather than working against it. The mummified women of Takarkori. During the early 2000s, in the desert of southwest Libya near Algeria, a significant discovery was made. Archaeologists were investigating a rock shelter called Takarkori, located in the former Green Sahara. Inside this shelter, they found something not just interesting but truly remarkable. As the scientists excavated through different time periods, they discovered the bodies of 15 people. These individuals lived in the same location thousands of years ago, when the Sahara Desert was not dry and barren like it is now. During that time, the area was lush and thriving, with inhabitants who engaged in activities like hunting, fishing, and herding animals. They also left behind evidence of their presence through pottery and rock paintings. Out of the 15 sets of remains found, 2 were particularly notable. These were not simply bones, but naturally preserved bodies with some skin, tissue, and even ligaments still intact. Despite being buried in the sand for thousands of years, these women were surprisingly well preserved. It was a rare and amazing discovery. Further investigation revealed that both individuals were women in their 40s at the time of their death, which occurred around 7,000 years ago. The objects found buried with the discovered remains made the discovery even more unique. Pieces of pottery indicated a lifestyle of settling down. Instead of just roaming the desert, these people were skilled at constructing homes and communities. By studying their tools, artwork, and burial customs, we can gain insights into their way of life. The inhabitants of Takarkori appeared to have made a living through a combination of hunting, fishing, and raising animals, such as goats and sheep. They possessed the knowledge of survival, prosperity, and showing respect for their deceased. However, the biggest mystery remained within the bodies, their DNA. Researchers were eager to delve deeper in order to comprehend the identities of these women, their origins, and what insights their genes could provide about ancient African communities. Yet, this would prove to be a difficult endeavor. Retrieving DNA from remains that have existed for thousands of years is always a daunting task. The Sahara, known for its extreme heat and drastic temperature shifts, is a particularly harsh environment for preserving genetic material. DNA deteriorates rapidly in hot conditions, making it extremely challenging to extract any valuable information. However, despite these obstacles, researchers made an attempt. Initially, they were successful in retrieving a small quantity, a fraction of mitochondrial DNA. This form of genetic material solely reveals information about the mother's lineage passed on to her offspring. Although it provided some insight, it was not sufficient. It offered limited information about their history, leaving many aspects still shrouded in mystery. A significant breakthrough occurred when new genetic technology allowed for more options. The team went back to the remains with improved tools and focused on a specific part of the skull called the petrous bone, which is known for preserving DNA well. If any usable DNA had withstood the harsh desert conditions, it would likely be found in this particular bone. From the skulls of the two Takarkori women, scientists were able to extract sufficient high-quality DNA to analyze their entire genetic makeup. This was a remarkable accomplishment as it marked the first time researchers had access to complete genetic information from human remains of such antiquity, especially from an extremely challenging environment. What initially appeared unattainable had now been successfully achieved. This discovery not only allowed scientists to research these two women, but also provided insight into the genetic background of early African populations. The period in which these women lived, known as the Green Sahara period, was a special time in history. The desert was fertile. People were interacting and forming early cultures. These women played a significant role in this historical narrative. Their DNA served as a tool to reveal previously obscured aspects of ancient history buried in the dust and quiet of the desert. The project's success demonstrated that determination, patience, and scientific methods could be combined to accomplish something that seemed impossible before. It was no longer just about discovering bones or objects. It was about reconstructing the lives of actual individuals, understanding their identity, and their place in the overall human history. The finding of the Takarkori women connected us to the past. Their presence silently revealed a tale of life in a paradise that had been forgotten. They resided in a land vastly different from the Sahara of today. Their environment was lush, moist, and brimming with potential. They engaged in fishing in rivers, guiding animals across plains, and residing in shelters similar to the one they were ultimately discovered in. Even after 7,000 years, they still had more stories to tell, not just to scientists, but to everyone. They showed us that the desert, which may seem barren now, was once home to families, communities, and memories. And if we pay attention, we can still hear echoes of the past in the sand. The untold story of the Takarkori people. In the Sahara Desert, there is a mysterious rock shelter known as Takarkori that has been quiet for many years. However, scientists have now started to uncover its mysteries, revealing new insights on ancient people, their travels, and the way they lived in a Sahara that was once green. In 2019, a team of scientists focused on ancient remains discovered at a hidden site in Libya. These were not just regular bones, but mummified remains that nature had preserved over time. These remains belonged to individuals who lived in a Sahara that was unlike the desert we see today. These people had tales to share, and the scientists were prepared to listen using technology instead of their ears. The researchers began their study with mitochondrial DNA, a unique type of genetic material that is inherited exclusively from mothers to their offspring. While it provides some information, it does not show the complete picture because it only tracks the maternal lineage. In order to gain a comprehensive understanding of the origins of these ancient individuals and their relationships with others, scientists mandated additional DNA from the chromosomes, which are inherited from both parents. This is where the complete narrative was found. The researchers were very cautious as they extracted DNA from ancient remains. They then compared this DNA with samples from over 800 people currently living in Africa, the Near East, and Southern Europe. Additionally, they utilized genetic data from 117 ancient individuals in those regions. It was like solving a large puzzle, but as they continued, the story started to come together. The findings were surprising. The Takarkori people were part of a distinct group with genetic markers that distinguished them from other populations in sub-Saharan Africa. These markers indicated that this group had diverged from sub-Saharan populations around 50,000 years ago, making it a significant period of time. These ancient individuals had been living in isolation for thousands of years in their separate world. However, there was an additional discovery. Their genetic makeup showed an unexpected finding. They had ancestors from the Levant, an area close to the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea and not within the Sahara Desert. This revelation suggested a historical connection between these desert inhabitants and individuals residing in distant regions. In some way, over time and distance, these separate worlds had crossed paths. The Takarkori people's DNA contained hints of Neanderthal ancestry, which is quite intriguing. Neanderthals were an ancient group of humans who resided in Europe and Asia, but never in Africa. This raises the question of how the Sahara people ended up with Neanderthal DNA. The most plausible explanation is that their ancestors left Africa, interacted with Neanderthals in Eurasia, and eventually returned. This migration occurred so far back in time that only minimal amounts of Neanderthal DNA are still present in their genetic makeup, roughly 1/10 of what non-Africans have today. This tiny detail was significant because it showed that the Takarkori people's ancestors had traveled far in the past. They journeyed across various lands and seas, encountered different human species, and eventually returned to Africa. They settled in the Sahara Desert, established communities, started families, and eventually became part of the desert's history. Their genetics indicated that they were separate from the rest of Africa for a long time, but archaeological evidence suggests otherwise. The artifacts they left behind, such as pottery and tools, showed that they had connections to other regions. The pottery styles at the site were similar to those from distant areas like the Nile Valley and the southern regions. This suggests that even though they were genetically unique, they were not culturally isolated. Trade, movement, and the sharing of ideas occurred among different regions. Pottery, design, symbols, and customs were passed on through smaller interactions rather than mass migrations. The Takarkori people were connected to a network that spanned across Africa, linking them through creativity, curiosity, and the need to survive. One important change in their way of life occurred when they started raising animals such as goats and cattle. This change in their lifestyle was significant in history. The researchers did not think it was due to a large influx of new people coming to the Sahara. Instead, it was more likely that smaller groups came together, communicated, learned, and evolved together. By interacting with others who were already domesticating animals, the Takarkori people may have decided to do the same. It was not a takeover, but rather a mutual exchange. This story highlights the significant impact that small interactions can have. It wasn't large groups or military forces that held the Sahara during this time. Instead, it was the personal connections made by individuals like traders, travelers, artists, and families that helped shape a new way of life in the region. A hidden lineage in the Green Sahara. Long ago, the Sahara Desert was not the dry, lifeless place it is today. Instead, it was green, fertile, and abundant with life. People lived in small communities in this lush environment. These ancient people left behind evidence of their existence, such as bones, tools, and even traces of DNA. Recently, scientists studied the genetic material left behind by some of these people from a location called Takarkori, which is now in southwest Libya. The findings they uncovered were unexpected, mysterious, and incredibly intriguing. The DNA revealed a new and previously unheard story. These individuals did not fit into any existing category of ancient humans. Their genetic composition was distinct and separate. They belonged to a separate human lineage that had not been identified before. They did not have many similarities with groups from southern Africa. Their DNA showed minimal to no intermingling with populations from that region. Furthermore, it was unexpected that they did not have a significant link to groups from the northern regions, such as the people from the Near East or ancient Europe. Typically, researchers anticipate some level of blending, especially in regions like North Africa, where there has been movement of cultures, ideas, and people for millennia. However, the individuals from Takarkori appeared to have remained isolated. This genetic isolation is intriguing because these people were not only hunters or gatherers, but also herders who raised animals like sheep and goats. The process of domesticating these animals, which started in the Near East, somehow reached the Takarkori people. However, what's interesting is that this cultural practice did not come with a large influx of people. When a new way of living emerges, it usually spreads to the people who adopt it. The Takarkori herders did not have many genes from Near Eastern people, even though they had knowledge of herding. This shows that knowledge can travel farther and more easily than people. Where did the ancient relatives of these mysterious people originate from? Might they have migrated from the north or east in the distant past, prior to entering a period of seclusion? Researchers attempted to address this question by examining their genetic material, specifically a genetic link to individuals beyond Africa, Neanderthal DNA. When early humans traveled from Africa to Eurasia, they interbred with Neanderthals. As a result, people with ancestors from outside Africa typically have a small amount of Neanderthal DNA, usually between 1 to 2%. However, those with ancestry solely from Africa do not have this Neanderthal DNA. This genetic trait can be seen as a marker, indicating whether someone's ancestors originated from Eurasia. An ancient woman from Takarkori had the most well-preserved DNA among others. Scientists carefully studied her genome and made a surprising discovery. She had a very small amount of Neanderthal DNA, almost negligible. The level of Neanderthal DNA in her was much lower compared to Eurasians today. This indicated that her ancestors did not recently migrate out of Africa. They did not originate from Europe or the Levant. They had a long history in Africa, spanning many generations. This discovery added to the mystery. The individuals had figured out how to care for animals that were originally tamed in places other than Africa. However, the individuals who shared this knowledge did not stay with them. There was very little intermingling of genes. It seemed as though concepts traveled alone, moving from one group to another through interactions, narratives, or brief encounters, without the original creators of those concepts physically relocating. This discovery is changing our perspective on history. It indicates that in the past, people did not always have to travel long distances to exchange ideas. Culture, tools, and knowledge could spread over vast areas from one group to another without any major movements of people. In this situation, the people living in the Green Sahara were involved in a long-standing African narrative that was not affected by the later large migrations. They had their way of living, distinct identity, and lived in a dry desert where their DNA left a strong mark. Their DNA revealed a story of a group who lived quietly but were able to adapt to new ways of life. Rather than isolating themselves, they found a way to mix old traditions with modern changes, maintaining their roots while evolving over time. The Lost Bloodline. In the center of North Africa, before it became a desert, the Sahara was a vibrant land teeming with life. It was lush and had lakes, rivers, grasslands, and various animals. Ancient humans lived there in thriving communities, hunting, gathering, and eventually raising animals. The remains of these early humans have been discovered in places such as Takarkori in Libya and Tafaralt in Morocco. These ancient discoveries are aiding scientists in uncovering a new and unexpected narrative of human history. This story takes a different direction than what was previously thought. Researchers were surprised to find that the genetic material of the people from Takarkori and Tafaralt showed no relation to those living south of the Sahara. It was clear that these individuals belonged to a distinct human lineage that had been isolated for thousands of years. This group had no genetic link to sub-Saharan Africans and seemed to have originated from ancestors who only lived in North Africa, separate from the rest of the continent. This finding questioned many beliefs about how people traveled in ancient Africa. It indicated that North Africa had its history that was not influenced by groups from the south. Although the Sahara used to be fertile and teeming with life, it still served as a significant natural obstacle. It prevented people from easily traveling between the north and the south. These natural barriers, like arid regions, deserts, or large areas with limited resources, could have kept human communities separated, even when the surrounding land appeared flourishing and verdant. To gain more understanding of this mystery, scientists chose to analyze the DNA of ancient North Africans and compare it with the DNA of other ancient humans from regions outside of Africa. They specifically looked at 50,000-year-old human remains from Zlati Kun, which is in the Czech Republic today. These individuals are some of the earliest modern humans known to have inhabited Europe. The comparison revealed an astonishing discovery. The ancient Green Saharans shared more genetic similarities with the Zlatikun population than with modern or ancient sub-Saharan Africans. This implies something very interesting. The North Africans were closely linked to the earliest modern humans who left Africa and went into Eurasia. The ancient humans from Zlatikun are also thought to be the first group that interbred with Neanderthals, leaving small bits of Neanderthal DNA in their bodies. Surprisingly, the Takarkori individuals also had a small amount of Neanderthal DNA, but only about 1/10 of what is found in current non-Africans. This information provided another hint. The study revealed that the Green Saharan population had a connection with the early travelers who left Africa and encountered the Neanderthals. However, at some point, things changed. While other humans traveled and intermingled with various groups, these ancient North Africans stayed put. They stayed in their area, separate and unaffected by the genetic mixtures that influenced the rest of humanity. This isolation persisted for many thousands of years. Their distinct genetic identity was maintained through a long time of being apart. The fact that they had very little Neanderthal DNA showed that they did not interact with other groups that had more of it. Unlike other human populations that experienced migration, intermingling, and movement, their history was one of staying in one place. Another aspect of the study examined the expansion of animal herding, also known as pastoralism, in the Green Sahara. In many regions, individuals carried their expertise in herding animals as they migrated from one location to another. However, this pattern did not seem to apply in this particular case. The research indicated no significant movements or shifts in population during the emergence of animal herding. This suggests that herding did not originate from immigrants. Instead, it likely spread through established trade routes. People likely exchanged knowledge and tools without necessarily relocating their residences or families. This highlights how culture and technology can sometimes spread more swiftly than the movement of people. The finding also clarified why this special genetic group is not present in a pure state today. In today's interconnected world with people traveling and migrating, different populations are constantly intermingling. As time passed, the previously isolated North African lineage mixed with other groups. However, it did not completely disappear. Some remnants of these ancient individuals can still be seen in the DNA of present-day North Africans. It's as if their history is still present in our genes, even though the complete story has become less distinct. This stunning and unexpected finding reveals that North Africa has a history that is older and more diverse than previously believed. It recounts the story of a group of individuals who resided peacefully for many centuries, isolated from other civilizations but closely linked to the early humans who ventured out of Africa. The silent lineage of Sahara. In the ancient Sahara, there was a secret hidden beneath layers of time, dust, and desert winds. Long ago, the Sahara was a green paradise with lakes, rivers, and life. People lived there, hunting, gathering, and raising animals. The artifacts they left behind tell the story of their lives and reveal who they were as a people. A team of scientists wanted to study a group of people who had been overlooked, not just by examining their pottery or bones, but by analyzing their DNA. They specifically looked at a type of DNA called mitochondrial DNA, which is only inherited from mother to child. This type of DNA reveals the ancestral history of the maternal line over many generations. Scientists were surprised when they analyzed the mtDNA of ancient women buried in Takarkori rock shelter in Libya. The genetic signature found was unexpected and did not align with previous beliefs. The researchers found that the female ancestors of these women separated from the main line of sub-Saharan African populations a long time ago. This split occurred around 50,000 years ago, which is 5 times older than the Egyptian pyramids. Following this split, something even more remarkable occurred. This group maintained genetic isolation from other human populations. While people around the globe were interacting, intermingling, and exchanging genes, this group remained apart. For thousands of years, their genetic lines stayed separate, like a lone tree in a vast field. The separation of these women lasted for around 7,000 years, even though the Sahara became green and suitable for travel during that time. Despite the favorable climate and conditions for migration, this ancient population stayed isolated and maintained their genetic identity throughout many generations. Scientists were very surprised by this discovery. They used to think that the Green Sahara was like a bridge between the northern and southern regions. The land was lush and had many lakes and rivers. It was seen as an ideal place for people to travel through, connect with others, and share ideas and genes. The researchers expected to find a mix of North Africa and sub-Saharan African ancestry in the DNA of people from the Green Sahara if it was a migration route, but they did not find any evidence of this in their study. The DNA results told a different story that was calm, silent, and had deep historical roots. A surprising finding was made that resulted in a new hypothesis. It is possible that people did not travel as extensively as previously believed by scientists. Instead of large numbers of individuals moving across the Sahara and mingling with different groups, it is likely that what spread was knowledge. The current theory is that pastoralism, which is the practice of raising and herding animals, spread not because people physically moved long distances, but because the idea of it spread. One group may have observed how another group raised cattle and then decided to do the same without having to relocate or interact with other groups. They simply wanted the knowledge. This sharing of knowledge was a cultural exchange rather than a genetic exchange. This new understanding alters our perspective on ancient history by revealing that people can maintain their genetic uniqueness while also incorporating new knowledge and practices from others. It demonstrates that a group can preserve its ancient genetic heritage while also embracing modern lifestyles. Studying the Takarkori genomes was a big scientific accomplishment. Previously, no one had obtained complete human genomes from an environment as old, hot, and dry as this one. The extreme heat in the desert typically breaks down DNA over time. However, the researchers were successful in this case. They were able to reconstruct the entire genetic makeup of individuals who lived more than 7,000 years ago. It was akin to listening to the words of a lost civilization speaking from ancient times. Their genetic material proved that this group has a significant ancestral background. They have a history that dates back to a time when the Earth was mostly covered in ice, mammoths were still around, and humans were only starting to discover the world. Despite facing challenges like climate change and cultural changes, this ancient population persevered, and their genetic foundation remained resilient and unchanged. Cultural history and genetic history do not always align. People can change their tools, habits, and lifestyles while still keeping the same DNA for centuries. The Takarkori people may have picked up animal herding practices from others, but their genetic heritage remained unique and ancient. This new finding questions previous beliefs and also presents new opportunities. It highlights the unexpected nature of history. It demonstrates that impactful stories can be found in unexpected places, like within our bodies. While the Sahara Desert may appear barren now, it holds a tale of resilience, survival, and uninterrupted existence underneath its surface. The Green Sahara was more than just a place with lakes and grass. It was where people lived through significant changes but stayed true to themselves. While their voices may not have been heard loud in history, they are now being recognized through scientific research and careful exploration. Their story is not about big attacks or massive movements, but about silent resilience, a heritage that remained steadfast while the rest of the world changed around them. Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more celebrity gist. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.